What's going on, party people? Welcome to the channel. Hey, today we're going to talk about yet another Lorenzo Pazzaglia fragrance, and this one should be gearing us towards quite a naughty evening. Strap up. All right, welcome to the Scent Bubble. I'm your host for the evening. Today from the house of Lorenzo Pazzaglia, we have Sexy. What I do like about this house is despite the gourmand emphasis and the playful emphasis of the brand, they did do a sea line. I think they have green sea, black sea, Arctic sea, Sexy. There's like at least 7 different sea kind of fragrances, which all play off this idea of being seaside. And so I'm glad that they did that because it can provide some versatility. But I think in the end, we're going to have that rich robustness behind even the aquatics and the watery seaside vibes, or even the gourmand elements splashed in nonetheless. But it's cool to see that they went there. So this is Sexy, a unisex fragrance. I didn't say this in my last review, but all of these I believe are extrait de parfum, and even if they aren't, they feel that way. Unisex fragrance for men and women, 4.26. If those of you guys who don't remember, Sweet Explosion had like a 3.7 or something. This has a 4.26, mass appeal out of 5 score with about 1,000 votes. Launched in 2022. It doesn't have a classification, but it does have a story. The sky turns red. Again, expect poetics with this house. The sky turns red and plunges into the sea. The heart catches fire with conflicting feelings and fades into the loving eyes that quench their thirst with poetry. Now they're just naming notes. Yeah, very descriptive. Those of you guys who haven't seen Lorenzo, he's kind of a quirky guy, but you know, you need quirky people in the arts. They keep things fun, fresh, interesting, creative. And I believe he was previously a chef, so that had a lot to do with kind of his approach to needing to smell robust scents, but I'll look into that at a later time. But 2022 launch, let's go ahead and cut all the BS and get straight to the review. 2 sprays on skin. 1 spray on skin, actually. It's a Lorenzo Pazzaglia. And I'm looking forward to this because it got a really high score. So people are saying like, yo, get your nose on this. Very interesting. So when I think sexy, I think an intimacy spin on being seaside. You know, sometimes you could play with like the sun going down. Sometimes you could play with adding something to it that makes it sexy, like a sweet tone. See, so like before I get into my description of this, I'm going to look at my synthetics list and see if there's something that kind of sounds like what I feel this is injected with. So this feels like it's injected with Calone. So look that up. Watery, marine, ozonic, melon-like. This is one of the classic aquatic synthetics. Often gives that ocean breeze, wet watermelon feel. And though I don't feel this has a watermelon note, it definitely has a seaside air to it. Not a bad thing, just loads of it in the fragrance, which adds to how they're able to pull off such richness. Now, I don't know if there's Calone in this fragrance. Can anybody put in the comments if they disagree with me? Let me know. But it's just an evaluation. You know, it's like there's an easy way to pull off longevity with certain synthetics if you just add a ton of them in the fragrance. And you guys let me know. Would you prefer a fragrance that is beast mode or has longevity and you're willing to take the sacrifice of smelling some distinct synthetics in the fragrance, just as long as people around you don't care? Or are you somebody who kind of, there's certain synthetics that just repulse you and you just can't even go near them? I'm interested. So I really like this fragrance, but it is quite simple. The opening feels like a dark sunset going behind the ocean. It's like 2 or 3 out of 10 sweet. You get like a fresh green air backdrop with a marine seaside salty like smell with a warmth of like amber. And I'm really digging it. But in the dry down, I mainly get a green, soapy seaside experience. Like a seaside experience that is doused in a kind of fresh Lever 2000 bar soap greenness. Not hating on it at all. I just know there's going to be like lemon, lime, like an ambergris, and maybe some sort of fruit or citrus. Let's switch screens and kind of see what we're dealing with here. I like the smell a lot though. Yeah, see, like if you saw this, guys, you would probably blind buy the fragrance just by the look of this. Like, just artistically, how beautiful does that look? Who doesn't love varying kinds of citrus, white florals, fig, and some green notes, right? Like, you know, compared to designers, which would put like, you know, bergamot and grapefruit and pink pepper as the top and leave all this out, you know, or just yuzu, or, you know what I'm saying? There is a slight mintiness to this, I will say as well. Kind of like a white floral very slight mintiness, which I do appreciate. It adds to the atmosphericness of this, makes it more 3D. And it does have a kind of figgy citron thing going on, dominantly citron yuzu-ish, but the slight sweetness from fig, but this is more of the tart, unripe fruit feeling. And yeah, I mean, it's quite nice. The opening is deceptive a bit because it dries down more simplistic kind of green bar soap with a slight airy mintiness behind it. But talk about versatility. You know, it's almost like the opening made me feel like the sun was setting, and the dry down made me feel like the slight tint of darkness before the sun is rising. That's what the dry down feels like. Very nice scent. I actually really enjoy it. I imagine this scent should at least go 6 hours plus. Most people are voting very strong sillage and long lasting. This might imitate a lot of your kind of Torino from Xerjoff style fragrances for sure. It definitely feels above average and feels high quality. I do feel like there's a stick out synthetic note there. Again, just wild guess. I think it's Calone, but it's done pretty smooth, but it does lead to this kind of very soapy seawater kind of feel. Excuse me, but it does have even a sense of maturity to it. It doesn't feel cheaply done. There was nice finesse here, and I do get the citrus elements and, you know, kind of green notes to the back. What am I looking for here? Oh, fragrances this reminds me of. You know, for some of you guys who like might have been intimidated by fragrances like Mega Mare from Ordo Parisi, this would be a great mass appeal alternative to get that feeling that Mega Mare has, but in a more mass appeal way that kind of leans more into the soapy green aspect and not so much the kind of animalic sea salt seaside kind of oddballness that the Mega Mare does, which people are very selective about, like even with fragrances like Ganymede, like the earthy nature, the elemental nature of that scent has some synthetics in it that people just like really are offended by, and it makes it just feel repulsive and like too heavy. But this is like a great alternative to me to like a Mega Mare. It doesn't smell exactly like it, but it's in that vein of sea watery, like airiness, ambergris type of stuff. And this is crazy. This is like a total like ADHD caveat. A barrage enclosure. It looks like somebody made a freaking clone of Enclave. Fragrance World did. How new is this? 2020 it's been out? Does it have high votes? 3.6. Okay. Interesting. I mean, I have Enclave, but that's really interesting. Okay, so a lot of fragrances that you've never heard of are on this list. I'm surprised Mega Mare isn't on there, but nonetheless, wait, what was that Montal? Aqua Palma? Okay. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap up with some usual suspects here, and let me get my black butt out of here. I like this a lot. As a score, I'm at somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9. just off the strength of versatility, not necessarily complexity, but it has enough complexity to feel well above designer. You know, solid entry niche territory here. This is like the dark side to a Louis Vuitton style fragrance. You know, imagine like Imagination or Afternoon Swim or something with a little bit more photo real atmospheric seaside waterness and a little bit of a dark tint. You know, for people who felt like they want to get into Louis Vuitton beach fragrances, but wanted something a bit more mature, but still fun and has the performance and doesn't feel as juvenile, teeny bop, rich college girls at a swimming pool type of feel. The C line might be the nice pivot for all of you collectors out there to still get that feel. Okay. What things do I need to provide to you guys? Seasons, 4 seasons, but spring, summers. I mean, it's great because again, the opening feels like the sunset. The dry down feels like a sunrise. 4 seasons leans spring, summer, even into fall. Fragrance definitely benefits from a breeze, but I don't mind heavy spraying something like this. Age-wise, it's just very soapy green, and it is a slight bit challenging. Like, I don't think anyone can get into it, but easy, like 20 and up for my men. Women, I do think there's like ambergris kind of vibes going on in this, where like it's a little bit beyond soapy. It's also minty. It's also a bit, you know, sea salty. I think there's going to be other offerings that do this better for women. So I think this heavily emphasizes men, even though it's marketed as a unisex fragrance. But I know plenty of women out there that wear tons of men's scents. So you can get into it if you want, but just my generalization is that most women would not find this nice on them. Performance should be easy, 6 to 8 hours minimum. Sprays on a fragrance like this, I'm really not going over 5, no matter what the weather is. I'm going to do 4 or 5 sprays, and if I have to reapply, I'll reapply just to recapture that first hour of that kind of opening and transition, because it is more rich than the dry down. Alternatives to this, I mean, really anything that smells like green bar soap and seaside vibes. But I think for the price point, this is stellar. I'm at like a 9. I think for my niche snobby collectors, you might give it an 8 bare minimum. But if I was decimaling, I would give it truly an 8.5, but I'm going to round that score up to a 9. I think a lot of you men out there would really like this, especially if you're tired of your blue fragrances and stuff like that. You want something. Here's a take. For a lot of you young guys, when you tried Bleu de Chanel Les Exclusifs, you were pissed because you preferred the EDP or Parfum or even the Eau de Toilette over that dark tint, whereas a lot of my older gentlemen did prefer the Les Exclusifs. This is kind of the middle of the road between that. Like, a lot of young guys would appreciate this maturity because it's still fun and airy and mass appeal-y, but it does scratch that maturity, slight complexity itch, because it's just not selling out on vanilla, and it's not just overly soapy either. It does have some atmospheric depth to it that I think all ages can get into. But I'm going to comfortably call this 25 and up, ambitious 20 and up. I think it's a masculine fragrance. Women tread carefully, and it's a 9 for me. And this was a very good scent. Like, comment, subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. Talk to me. I do talk back. I don't want to name a bunch of alternatives, because if a house did something really well, I think, you know, the price point's at $200. Discounters are putting it around $150 for a 50 ml, but the 50 is going to feel like $100 because of the performance. Price justified in my book. You know, designers and stuff, anything soapy green and slightly dark could do the job for you. Sound off in the comments. Have you guys tried this fragrance? Sexy. I do think it's sexy in the opening, but simple and soapy on the dry down. It's less sexy on the dry down, but it's got some mysteriousness to it, so we'll let it slide. Let me know what you guys want me to try next. We're going to walk through most of the line, but tell me what's your favorite Lorenzo Pazzaglia if you guys have it. I know it's hard to get access to the entirety of this brand. Most people kind of go towards Summer Hammer and Sangria, which we'll go to those, or the Vampire Rum, which we'll get to that. But I think everybody kind of gravitates to something different. Especially since this house appeals to kind of like gourmands in very robust beast mode sense. Everybody's going to kind of have their own jam, but it seems like the gravity is with Summerhammer and Sangria, but we'll get to those soon. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and got value out of it. Join the free Discord in the description below. Check my playlists out to see how the channel's been organized. And I'm going to go, but I'm going to throw up 2 videos that you might enjoy based off what you've been searching for. This was Lorenzo Pazzaglia's Sexy, and I hope you guys are blessed, and we'll talk soon.